Thank you once more for coming back to Sarita Talks. And I'm just telling you, we have been on a roll with health and wellness. We've been on a roll with just awareness in general. And it's my genuine pleasure to keep that going with Sharon's son, George. And he has started Together for Sharon. Together for Sharon. I
.com.
know. I don't know how I've forgotten that moment. Please, George, tell us about your fight and the fight that you are trying to get other people to be aware of with Parkinson's.
Well, first, thank you for your time and your audience. It means more than the world, actually. I say the world, but it's not just for me and my family, but for the millions, 10 million around the world and 1 million in the US fighting this disease. Unfortunately, it's even the headline today, which I don't want to get all political, but now they're thinking even our, executive, top leader, the president, could possibly be showing signs of this disease, which I hope it's not. Because no matter what side or political, we want everyone to be healthy and safe, in defending our country. So I send my love to even them today.
Yeah.
But this is unfortunately the fastest growing neurological disease in the world. I was shocked. My mother passed, unfortunately, 4 years ago. So I still grieve today, and I'm grateful again to individuals like you who inspire me to keep fighting in her memory. But if it wasn't for things like our talk today, I don't think I would be able to still, move forward. So advocacy to me is important. Before even found the world of Parkinson's or was kind of thrown into it with my mother. I've always been an advocate. My career started out, always had a passion to help victims of crime. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, so you can figure out why I
Yeah.
still work. But I became an attorney and worked at the state attorney's office for an internship. So I saw in the prosecutor's office, you just don't have the time to help victims like I wanted to. So I thought, why not become a police officer? I went to the Miami Academy in Florida. And
Yeah.
I found once again, you just don't have time because you hand a brochure and you have to move to the next call. So thankfully, I was able finally to fall in love with education, became a professor, but my PhD and dissertation is in criminal justice. But I worked with a group of African American mothers who lost their loved ones
Nice.
due to murder in West Palm Beach, Florida. So, I've always kind of been an advocate. It just now shifted when my mother passed on 1/1/2020 due to Parkinson's disease.
Can I ask you, because that, listen, I just see that service heart. And when you learned about Parkinson's through your mother being diagnosed with it, did you know anything about Parkinson's before then?
And that's why I'm proud to say I was very unaware, and that's the problem. She
Yeah.
had it for about 15 years total, but for 7 years she kind of hid it from us. So I heard the
Oh.
word Parkinson, didn't even know the disease part, so I didn't have any clue what it was, why. But I did notice she was okay. She was able to live independently, or she hid it well. Finally, on the fourth year before she passed, we started seeing a lot of stiffness in her left arm, so she
Yeah.
actually almost couldn't use her arm. So when we went to eat dinner, we would cut food for her, but she still was able to drive, live independently. She had been a single mother. But, I don't think I would be the man I am today or have accomplished what I have if it wasn't for her sacrifices. She was a school teacher. She was a very loving, amazing mother, always there. We spoke 10 times a day. So I didn't really just lose a mother.
Oh.
I lost my best friend. And I feel like a part of me also passed when she did. So I just feel that she lost about 15 years alive and 15 after because she was only 69. So she was young. She had no
Yeah.
other no medical issues besides Parkinson's. But the only thing we saw was the stiffness. And for some reason, we tried everything and nothing worked because there's no cure. But
Right.
my father flew in from New York, brought her to a special trial at a university, which again, I'm not mad at the school. They tried their best, but we think they might have drastically changed her medicines too much. So she showed up
Mhm.
at 4 a.m. I got an emergency call to rush to her house, and I found her kind of frantic and agitated, like I've never seen anything before. And she had been
Oh.
she moved her furniture out of her house, and she said she was in fear of Nazis in her home. So I knew something more was wrong. I rushed to the emergency room. We saved her life, but I don't, in a way, it kind of didn't because that was when everything like almost like a hammer and a nail. It was just every day was something else, and
Wow.
unfortunately, we lost her battle. But I kind of grew, out of the darkness comes a lot of positive and light because I'm able to meet amazing people like you and your audience, and every day I'm inspired by so many still battling Parkinson's, their families. and I do it in memory, not just of my mother, but all the people we've lost, probably millions, unfortunately, last decade
Right.
due to this disease.
What do you think is slowing up progress on finding a cure?
Think the biggest problem is everybody's journey is so different. So what happened to my mother had, I didn't even get into it, but also late onset dementia, which brought hallucinations and delusions. So after I
Yes.
brought, and that was even in a way, in my opinion, I could be wrong for others, but they have different journeys. But that was even scarier than Parkinson, because a lot of times Parkinson's is stiffness. So it's almost like you want to reach to the screen, but my body is, your mind's not allowing it, and it's almost like you're frozen. You have dystonia at times, which is the curling of the toes, uncontrollable. And a lot of things as it progresses happen, like loss of speech, writing, even ability to stand or live independently after there's 5 stages, they believe. And my mother, in the fifth year of her life, or the last four, was in stage 4 and 5. Michael
Mm,
J. Fox, a hero of mine, had Parkinson's. It's called young onset. So he had it in his 30s, and he's become one of the biggest advocates in the world. But he's not doing well. If you noticed, last week he was actually in a concert playing guitar with Coldplay, which was incredible. But he was actually wheelchair bound, at least I think, or he was at least in a wheelchair, and that was tough, because I met with him a few months ago, and I could see, my life flashed by my eyes. It was like 1 minute I was in heaven, because I get to meet a hero of mine, an
yeah.
advocate. But on the other side, I saw a little of my mother in him, because of the disease. And he has more of the external tremors, where
Yeah.
uncontrollable movement. My mother had more internal, which frustrated her, because she thought people didn't believe her, because if you didn't see it, just because we
Yeah.
don't, I interviewed someone the other day, and they have Parkinson's, and to me they look beautiful, like a great shape, everything. But
Yeah.
you don't really know, what's inside and what's going on. And there's no cure right now. A lot of
Right.
times, there's actually no tests really for Parkinson's. You go to the I'm not a medical doctor. I always say go to
Mhm.
see a medical professional. Normally, it's a neurologist, movement disorder specialist, but they'll test you or the individual for several types of diseases. And then if you don't have those, they kind of throw you in the basket of Parkinson's. So we need to kind of, improve a lot of these. I
Yeah.
know I don't think it's genetic, but I was just telling my wife I have other issues right now, my back and things, but
Hmm.
I might have been looking to getting tested myself, because I don't have Parkinson's, but we're not really sure, how you get it.
True, true. And I know that had to have been super bittersweet. And I was looking at some of the awesome things. You've got a nice website. I mean, go check it out, Together for Sharon. Your podcast, spot on. And when you met Michael J. Fox, you also developed a relationship with both of your organizations. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not an organization. I'm just one person, one son who lost his best friend mother due to the disease, and maybe
Okay.
in the future we'll do that. But I'm a lawyer too, so I know how to do it. I just don't want. My big thing is I don't want anything in return. I just want
Yeah.
people to know that they're never alone, and that there are people like me out there fighting on their behalf. Some people might not realize they have a voice, so I try to voice for those that might not have one, or that we've lost due to the disease. But so yeah, I have worked with the Michael J. Fox Foundation. They even were amazing enough, and this is our book that just recently came out. That it's on
Yes.
the Michael J. Fox website, which was really, in a way, amazing to see my mother's face on their site. So and I've actually worked. It's actually history was just made last week. The president signed it into law, but it's the national plan to end Parkinson's disease, and it
Oh,
started
wonderful.
a very long time ago. But in the United States, unfortunately, we've never had any legislature ever in history, which is really shocking to me for people with Parkinson's or their families. So last December was an honor to learn that it was passed unanimously through the House. Then it went to the Senate unanimously. And finally, just a week ago, President Biden signed it into law.
I
And I'm
love
hoping
this.
now we still have a lot of work to do, because we have to make sure it's implemented, but it should change the world for people with Parkinson's, the research, finding a cure, and also, or most importantly, awareness. So, uh,
Yeah, and I love that. I love that you touched on awareness because I know in my own personal life, I had never heard of Parkinson's until Michael J. Fox had Parkinson's. And I remember there was some investigation as to whether that was like some type of environmental thing, because a lot of people who were around him when he was shooting the show that made him, kind of famous, were coming down with Parkinson's. So, I mean, it's so crazy that something that's been around 30 years, we don't have a grasp on. Do you know anything about the new medications that they're trying to, give to people? Because I know you were talking about how your mom, how those, you know, maybe added to her decline. And I know too that a lot of people didn't know about the hallucinations that came along with it. And so I just happened to see a commercial years ago about it. What can we do to improve? And are there any medicines that, are working for people?
Yeah, the problem with medicines are they actually could cause other things like hallucination, delusions, even psychotic type breaks and episodes. So it's very
Yeah.
dangerous drugs, but it mainly, some of them like carbidopa, levodopa help with the tremors and things. So if the individual
Yeah.
doesn't have a major issue with tremors, that one won't help. But it's also a lot of medical stuff and science. I know a lot about it just because of what my mother went through. The problem is
Right.
if you don't take the medicines at the right time and the right amount, it's actually could be devastating. Also, we had some individuals like AIDS help us out. They kept a journal, but who knows, if they followed it all. When my mother passed, I had to come, it was horrible. I had to clean out her home,
Yeah.
one of the toughest days of my life. And I threw out, like, imagine ever seeing those huge, they're like contractor garbage bags. They're big and black. We have,
Yes.
we have five of those of all medicine. So they
Oh
can't
my God.
that's that helpful. So they do have medicines not to slow the progression, but to control the tremors a little bit. But again, doesn't work with everyone. The other problem is we have people misdiagnosed, not diagnosed early on time and not early enough, and that's a big thing. The biggest things now is that can slow the progression but not cure it is dieting, exercise, and like you said, I'm 100% believer it was environment. My mother had
Yeah.
a beautiful home in Florida, but she had mold and also termites. So back then, 10 years ago, they used to spray poisons and things in the house. Now, at least where I'm located, I don't know if you know, but you might do, but the exterminators and all the pests, they don't even go in your house anymore. Like they don't,
Absolutely.
they actually banned themselves. And I was shocked. Just like, I'm like, what if there's a bug? But we haven't had any bugs lately, but they do everything outside, which is
Hmm.
great. But who knows, even the weeds, what they spray on our fruits and vegetables. I mean, there's so much stuff out there, and we rely on the government. But there's things like something called paraquat, which is poison, and it's used in the pesticides. It's banned in China, but not in the U.S. So we have a
Absolutely.
lot. We still have a lot of work to do.
George, that's a whole nother conversation about the things that are polluting us and polluting our bodies. So, I mean, and I look for the ripple effect to continue on. The more we eat these things, the more we consume these things, the more that they become acceptable. Now, I just want to touch on the fact that it's a blessing to have you on today. You just had back surgery.
Yeah, it's been an interesting summer, but they say the number one rule is to take care of your own health when you're caring. And as an advocate, and I don't do that on purpose, which is not the smartest. But the reason I didn't do it with my mother is she only felt kind of safe, when I was around, and
Yeah.
that meant the world to me. I just wanted her to be kind of feel comfortable, even though she was struggling. And then today, as an advocate, every time I see somebody struggling, it really breaks my heart. I don't want anyone to ever have to go through my mother or our family has. And I spend endless hours. I'm not sure. Hopefully, we're following each other on social media, but
Yeah.
somehow I have several different things, and people will look at us and think we're a company or organization, but it's
I
just
did.
me. Yeah, it's just
Just
me.
you.
I didn't want it to be that. Like maybe one day, but I like it just being about people, and my focus is really just to end the disease. But yeah, I've had a very rough summer. I had a third back surgery. Nothing happened to me. I just woke up. I'm 46 now, but at 42, I don't know what happened. And it's almost like, I don't want to scare people. It's like having a sword being put in your back and left there for months.
Oh my gosh.
But I do
Yeah.
feel better. And then they found a tumor in my left thigh, which I don't know where that came. So I had surgery last week on that. And in the beginning of the summer, I had ankle surgery because I used to be a competitive basketball player,
Mhm.
uh, and I tore three ligaments, but that didn't heal. So I'm still gonna have to figure that out. But anyway, the point I'm saying is there's been times where I'm in a lot of pain, laying on the bed, and I'll pick up the phone because of social media, and I'll start recording. I'll get right up and like Jay Z, I dust myself off and keep fighting for a cure because
Yes.
no matter what my pain and my things, I think some of my things I hope can be fixed someday, even if it's tortured before then. But Parkinson's right now can't. So that's really what I don't want to see. And like I said, there's not a day that doesn't go by that I wish my mother wasn't here. Even yesterday, I told my wife, who was my rock and support through this, and my children, but I picked up the phone and I don't even know if it's here, but let me just see. I don't want to take time, but
No, that's okay. While
you
you're looking for that, I just want to say
sometimes
what a
you click on
testimony.
your favorites. My mother's still there, and sometimes I forget to remove it. But that's the kind of stuff that's still like not easy to deal with. And
Yeah.
still,
Well, let me tell you in this moment, George, you are making her memory a blessing. You are teaching people, and I know she is proud of you. I mean, I'm proud of you for coming on here with back pain and, excuse me, more than back pain, a sword in your back. That's terrible. That's terrible. But I know how it is when you're so passionate about something. So here is what I'm going to tell you right now in this moment, George. Sometimes you have to breathe and take time for yourself, or else there won't be anyone to do it for you.
right?
Okay. I'm trying to tell you, Together for Sharon, show me the book because you
Sure.
just barely, I mean, you just let us glance A Son's Journey. Tell us about the book.
And actually, the cover is, I always say, is probably one of my most favorite memories of my life. It was the son-daughter dance, son and daughter, son and mother dance at my wedding. And besides meeting my wife and my having my children, those were amazing days. But this time it was just a few minutes that Parkinson's kind of froze, didn't matter, and can't
Nice.
never take that from us. It took my mother, unfortunately, but it can never take that moment. So even talking sometime about it's tough. I'll be fine here. I'm 6'2", 200 pounds. I'm in policing, but like I'll go to the next room and fall apart with my wife. So it's not
Oh,
easy, but that's why we do it. My book's not a book that is always an easy book. It's definitely tough topics. If you don't mind, I can even read one sentence.
please
But
do.
some of the
Yes.
topics that I cover are, my caregiving, first signs of Parkinson's, ways to treat it, and symptoms, but also my caregiving, but my support, like my wife and my children. And also, it ends on a positive note, even though, of course, I lost my mother, but advocacy and how grateful I am to people like you and your audience because, you're helping me spread the message for awareness. But
Absolutely.
one of
And
the, some of the,
that's really what my show is all about is helping people to transform, helping people to inspire others. And like I said, her memory is a blessing because of Together for Sharon. And the book is, you know what, I wonder too, because I'm a caregiver as well. I take care of my mom. She's 72 and she's super fun. But sometimes it's rough. It's rough. And I know the conversation she really wants to have is about a will and my lights click off periodically about
maybe
a
my mother's with
will.
us right now.
You hear me? That's right, Sharon. That's right. I listen. I love going live too because I think to myself, all the words that come out are anointed. If it's meant to be, it will be said. And here's my thing: is as a caregiver, there's rough times, but we don't want to prepare for the end. I know I don't, and it doesn't matter if I know she's not going to live forever. I know, but it's moments like this where you see that someone is doing something with it. Sharon, or excuse me, Sharon, she's really on us today. So, George, what would you ideally like to happen from this show? What's the call to action to be more informed?
Yeah, I mean, the sad thing in our society is we have a beginning, middle, and end of life, and a lot of people
Mhm.
don't. They kind of ignore and don't want to. They push they push the book and me on the side. I'm a speaker. I've spoken in front of thousands of people, but a lot of the Parkinson's groups don't have me because they don't. The big saying in Parkinson's world is, "You don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it," which is true for some people, but it wasn't for our
True.
journey. I wish it was, but so they don't want to see what reality can be. And not everyone, there's been a lot of amazing support. We always have the 1% that doesn't, want to see it or learn, and they just wait. And guess what? You're doing a disservice to your family because my mother was one thing, she was a planner. We never planned that she would pass, but she already had her
Mhm.
funeral done. I was a power of attorney, and it wasn't for Parkinson's, it was just for the
Just in
future.
case.
Yeah, I was a power of attorney. We had a will. We had everything so perfectly laid out that it would have been double crushing.
Yeah.
I spoke at her funeral, which is probably I have it online. One of the toughest days in my life, but that was I just imagine if I had the speech, do all the wrapping up of her whole life, and on top of that, fighting with family and this, and we didn't have that because she thought of others. So there's a lot, but my main mission again is really just to I feel like if we just reach one person today, then we've changed the world. And even just for that one person, now they know it's being discussed. Uh,
Yeah.
Even with the president in the U.S. now, it's sad that they're. I don't like the using just any disease to kind of make someone feel down, but it is important that now that word Parkinson is being spoken about nationally. Because last week, if the bill passed, he's speaking about it. People in the media, who knows what they're doing, but they're talking about
Yeah.
now. People are going to hear the word Parkinson's disease and they're going to be aware, which is actually important in a sad way for the world. And I think we definitely can come closer to a cure if we all work together. I'm a big
Absolutely.
believer of how our voices together are so much stronger. But again, I have actually two more books done. I'm waiting each year to put them out. One is going
Nice.
to change the world. It's actually about police and Parkinson's disease because
Okay.
as a police officer, there's no awareness. And if you pull someone over late at night, as we know with law enforcement, it's a tough society today for them
Hmm.
too. But it's an uncontrollable movement. So if an
Oh, yeah.
officer had never heard of the word Parkinson's, isn't trained in the academy, it's not going to end well for anyone. And actually, I've interviewed many, many people with Parkinson, and a lot of them fear the police, which I want to change because they shouldn't. They're just worried because they're in fear that that is what's going to happen. So my book
Well,
is done. I'm editing it, but it's going to be groundbreaking, I think.
I believe it. And you're going to have to come on and tell us all about it so we can be ready for that release. And I just love that you realize that through this bad, and it didn't have to happen, but it did happen, that you are able to take this advocacy to an area that like clearly a lot of people didn't know about. And I like to, kind of just put that off on, I spent a lot of time. I spent 14 and a half years of my life in prison, but I'm making that a blessing so people can see that, hey, I'm a human, I'm a person, and I deserve a chance. And here's another thing. I feel like we think of words like Parkinson's, but it doesn't have a face. So we don't really know about it, or you don't know anybody that has it. And if you do, you don't, they're not, until it's in your family. I feel the same way about criminal justice reform. My family would have never imagined how the system really went until it happened to them.
Right.
And I feel like when you take the steps to write a book about it, to let somebody know, blessings to you. Blessings to you.
And thanks for what you do. I mean, I actually am a professor, but I teach at one of the prisons. I won't say which school,
I
and it's
love
all
it.
students who are incarcerated. But I believe again they have an opportunity to change and also improve their life. And with education, really can help someone. When they do get out, they now can have a career and a life. So I commend you.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm glad you realized that. And I also want to just come back to, you have a lot of good things that people can look at right now. So tell us about your website. Tell us about your podcast.
yeah, the number one thing is we don't accept anything, but you're never alone. So I don't. If you send me $1, I'll send it back, but it'll cost me a few dollars because of shipping. So we don't accept any money. We do have a section that says donation, but
Hmm.
the donations are actually for organizations like the Michael J. Fox Foundation.
Uh-huh.
So if you donate, it's in memory of my mother, but it goes to their organizations. I think I'm
And that's
losing.
TogetherForSharon.com, or how do we tell us the website, tell us the
I think you're
podcast?
breaking up, but I could
Okay.
keep talking for hours.
Yeah. Well, let me see here. Can you hear me now?
Well, in case I lose you,
Uh-huh.
it
Oh,
sounds
well,
like
I
we're
hate to
an
lose
ancient
you.
aliens. But I
Yeah.
do. Please visit TogetherForSharon.com. I'll just say a few words in case I lose you. And
Okay. Okay.
there's a lot of great things. Oh, you're back. There you go. I
Great.
realized
Great.
I lost
Yeah.
you.
Together
But
for Sharon.
TogetherForSharon.com is just a website.
And I also saw that you have a
It's just an
Q&A.
informational website. Again,
Is there
I
also a
lost you
link to
again.
click for questions and answers? Oh, we've lost George.
I think
Yeah.
your voice is breaking up.
Okay. Yeah, we've lost George. Thank you so much for
I
tuning
do
in.
have
He's
one
going to
last.
have to come back. Yeah, go ahead. One last
Last,
thing.
now you're back. I see you now.
Okay.
But
You said you
yeah, I
want to
do
tell
have
us one
one
more
last
thing?
again. I want to thank.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your time and your audience. But we love you, we support you, and we care a lot about you. And no one is alone. I, along with you, will advocate, and together our voices are so much stronger. And I always say I'm just getting started because even though I'm not, every time I meet someone inspirational like you or someone
Oh,
battling the disease or a caregiver, it really kind of re-energizes me like that little rabbit, the Energizer Bunny. And no matter what, I will never stop fighting till we find a cure. So thank you and
oh,
grateful again for your time.
Oh, you know what, George? Thanks for coming on. And everyone, thank you so much for listening, paying attention. I want you to learn something. I want you to check out A Son's Journey. And I want you to come back when you have your book together about policing. And I really feel like we need to talk a little bit about mental health and policing as well. But you'll have to wait for it. Thanks so much for tuning in.